Welcome to the Great Man Within podcast. Every episode is designed to help you discover and live the great man within you.
Hey everyone, Bryan rocking a solo episode here, my first one, because Dominick is out living adventures in ... for this 90 days, something that we're doing with the Great Man Mastermind, and he is with one of our other brothers in Costa Rica right now, doing something very exciting that we will be talking about on a future podcast. But for today, it's just me, and I don't listen to all of our episodes on this podcast. I do listen to some of them. I got to listen to one of Dominick's solo episodes a week ago. And the reason I got to listen to that is because I was working in my garage. I didn't think a gray garage floor was good enough, so I wanted to stain it. I had never done work like that before. Turns out that staining and putting an epoxy coat on top of that stain is a longer project than anticipated. So I had started one of our podcasts and my hands were full of epoxy and I didn't get an opportunity to hit stop, pause, or listen to an audiobook. And so I got to rock out a bunch of the Dominick solo episodes. One of which he did was one of his morning routines where he did a check-in with his head, his heart, and his cock. I thought that was interesting. It felt like, even for me, somebody that knows Dominick very well, behind the scenes of how he actually does some things. And it got me to thinking about my morning routines and where they come from. One of the first questions that I often get from people that just start listening to this podcast or meet us on our Facebook group, it's where do I start? Like, where do I begin this journey? And I love that question because it gives me an opportunity to reflect on where I started and what my path and journey has been so far. It also happens to be the very first question that I asked Dominick. Going back to late 2016, I took Dominick out to a restaurant for brunch because I know he likes pancakes. And I sat him down, we ordered pancakes, and I asked him, I said, man, you have left the corporate career. You seem like you're doing pretty good. You got more energy than I've ever seen. Like, what are you doing? Where did you start? And he had the opportunity to reflect on his experiences and the different things that he's gone through. Those things, those steps, those along his path included books, it included experiences, it included podcasts, it included conversations with people. And I noticed that my morning routine also comes from an amalgamation of those experiences, of those different inputs to my inner work path. And so today I thought that I would share one of my morning routines that is indeed an amalgamation of the different experiences I've had on this path. This part of my morning routine is broken up into 3 different areas. The first part is breath work. The second part is intention setting, and it's the active part, and what we'll spend most of this podcast on. And then the third part is a silent meditation. Each one of these parts has an origin story. And so it's been fun. I've been doing this same morning routine for the last couple of years, and it was fun to think through, how did I cobble this together from my different experiences? So the first part, the breath work, what I do most of the time is I do the Wim Hof breath method, which we've talked a lot about on this podcast. And where did I pick that up? I picked that up at a Mind Valley retreat called A-Fest in 2017, where we got to meet Wim Hof, and he showed us how to do this breath work. The reason that I continually do it every day is because I do this in the morning. That type of breath work does 2 things for me. One, it activates, it gets me energized, and it also grounds me. So before going into the active part of my meditation, it really helps me focus and grounds me into being inside that experience. So that is the origin story for part 1. It's breath work. It is the Wim Hof method. Same breath work that we often do prior to recording this podcast. So on Fridays, I get a double dose of Wim Hof. The second part, the active intention setting part of my morning routine, has many different origin stories, and it's where we're going to spend most of the time during this podcast. The first thing that I do is a check-in. It's a physical check-in with my body and an emotional check-in. I learned this technique at Dominick's very first retreat in 2017, where I thought it was the strangest thing to be sitting in a chair and someone asking me, what does my body feel and what do I feel emotionally? So we're not going to go into, you'll hear me do the check-in when I actually go through this process here at the end of the podcast. But the reason I do that is to, again, feel where I'm at emotionally, to understand where I'm at physically, and to further ground into the experience. So that's the first part of the active meditation. The second part is I repeat what my yearly mantra is. So if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that every single year I have a word or even a phrase that I meditate on, that I think about, that it's a theme for the year. Mine for this year is trust. And so the active part of this meditation is all about trust and how that applies to different parts of my life. How trust manifests during this active setting also plays into some of the books that I've read. So one of the books that we talk about often is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And in the book, Napoleon talks about how if we state the specific amount and the specific date that we want and that we desire, right, it's more likely to happen. It's more likely to manifest. So this is the second part of my active meditation. And for me, that is having $7 million of disposable income by August of 2025. And so you'll hear me say that when we get to this part. The second part of trust in this area is around relationships. And I check in with my family, with my friends, and I trust that they love me and that I love them. And this is an important part, the relationship. When I realized during a Tony Robbins event that when I think about the things most important to me, oftentimes they have to do with relationships. I thought at that time it was about business, it was about body, and it turns out that when I did some reflection on it, relationships were really important to me. So this is always the second part of my active meditation, is trusting in those relationships. The second thing is something I'm working on. And something I'm working on right now is not overcommitting myself to different things. And so you'll hear me in the meditation is that I trust myself to make the commitments I want to make and to meet those commitments, and trust that others will do the same. So you'll hear me go through that part of it. And then the final and the last part of the active part, the intention setting part of the meditation, is related to my body and how I trust my body to take me through the experiences that I want to experience in life. The reason I have these three things, financial, relationally, commitments, and body, is because I found when I have those four things in my life moving in unison, moving in alignment, I'm at my best. And so for the past 2 years, whether the theme has been trust or the theme has been something else, those have been the elements that are part of my active meditation. The third and final part of my morning routine is a silent meditation. It's guided by a mantra that I've used for about 3 years that comes from Michael Singer's, who is one of our, I like to get unknown mentors. I've listened to a lot of his content, and he's one of my favorite characters still here on earth. But his book, Surrender Experiment, helped me understand what surrender is. And the mantra that I use during the silent meditation is, the purpose of my life is to let go of my stuff. In the next few minutes, I can't possibly do that any justice in terms of the meaning behind it. For that, I highly recommend, and we'll link to The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer if you want it by book. He also has a great audio that is called Living from a Place of Surrender, that goes through this same sort of mantra. The purpose of my life is to let go of my stuff. So you'll hear at the end, we're not going to listen to all 15 minutes of my silent meditation. That wouldn't make for very good content. But you will hear me say at the end of the active part of the meditation, as I move into the silent meditation, you will hear me repeat that mantra. I have this mantra because oftentimes, and if you've done any meditation, I'm sure you've experienced something similar. I oftentimes get lost. I get lost in thought. Oftentimes those thoughts bring up an emotion. And when I start to feel that and I catch myself, I can repeat this mantra and it brings me back. It tells me it's okay. I'm just going to let go of what that is. and get back into the meditation. So that's why I have this guiding principle or a mantra at the end of my morning routine in my silent meditation. I just finished Wim Hof's breath method, and now I will start the active part of my morning routine. This is part 2 with a check-in. Physically, I feel warm. I feel my heart beating. I hear ringing in my ears. My lips are dry. I feel tightness in my chest and butterflies in my stomach. Emotionally, I feel scared in my stomach. Feel grateful in my heart. I feel grounded. And with that, I call in my angels to witness me. I call in my guides to guide me, my protectors to protect me. I call in Jesus to love me. And all to witness this year of trust. I trust that I'm on the path to $7 million by August 2025 to build the digital and physical spaces to put men on this path of inner work. I trust that my relationships with those I care about are strong. My parents, my sisters, my love, my friends. And I trust that they love me too and will support me. I trust myself to make commitments that I can keep. Commitments that feel like they're aligned to my direction. Commitments that are good for me and the person that I'm committing to. I trust that I will keep those commitments. And I trust that those who make commitments will keep them for me. I trust my body to be here for me, to help me experience all that life is giving me. I trust that when I give my body the right sleep, the right food, the right mental and emotional space, and the right movement, that my body will be healthy. And it will take me through life so that I can experience and do everything that I desire. And with that, the purpose of my life is to let go of my stuff. The purpose of my life is to let go of my stuff. I just completed about 15 minutes of silent meditation with that mantra. I invite you to try something similar. Based on your experiences, please don't try to repeat what I've done, what I've said, because that's probably not going to work for you. You may have heard me call in my angels, my guides, my protectors, and Jesus. And that's something that I do because I find it useful to be reminded that I have other beings, other entities out there that are here to love me, here to protect me, here to guide me, here to witness me. And that may not work for you. So my encouragement is start on this path of inner journey. Listen to the podcast, read the books, go seek your own experiences. And my bet is that your morning routine will evolve to exactly what you need. Now mine has evolved. Sometimes I take out different parts. Sometimes I put different parts in. Sometimes I experiment. Sometimes it feels like it gets stale and I don't want to do it anymore. And that's all okay. But I can tell you when I do it, I feel more grounded. I feel happier and I get all the benefits that come along with doing the inner work.